nor you, neither you nor your people before this. So be patient. Indeed, the best outcome is for the righteous. So the kind of al-ghayb that is mentioned in this verse is the same as the one mentioned in Quran chapter 2 verses 2 and 3. A similar one is also mentioned in Quran chapter 3 verse 44, but we are not going to read that. You can visit that as a reference. The same thing in Quran chapter 12 verse 102. Here, we got to know that al-ghayb in some of the Quranic verses refers to things that are abstract, like the names of Allah, matters of the angels, issues surrounding the paradise and the hell, and many stories that the Quran is telling Muhammad and the Muslim Ummah are referred to as al-ghayb, because Muhammad did not have the prior knowledge until the Quran is being revealed or was being revealed. So, however, we should note that many of these stories that the Quran is narrating to Muhammad and that are being referred to as al-ghayb, many of these stories were already mentioned in earlier scriptures. So that means those stories were al-ghayb to Muhammad and his people, but they were not al-ghayb to certain people in the world. So from there, we will realize that the Quran might be referring to certain things as al-ghayb simply because those people do not have the knowledge. So those who have the knowledge, it will not be al-ghayb to them. So there is a link, there is a relationship between al-ghayb and knowledge. How are we going to establish that as a fact? Now let's go into Quran chapter 2 verses 31 to 33, where the story of Adam, the first man, is being discussed. Bismillah. Surah al-Baqarah verse 31 to 33. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ
كلها ثم عرضه على الملائكة فقال أنبئوني بأسماء هؤلاء إن كنتم صادقين.
We are going to 33.
قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. قال يا آدم أنبئهم بأسمائهم فلما أنبأهم بأسمائهم قال ألم أقل لكم إني أعلم غيب السماوات والأرض وأعلم ما تبدون
وما كنتم تكتمون. Now here, and he taught Adam the names. Who is he there? Allah. He taught Adam the names, all of them, names of all things. Then he showed them to the angels and said, inform me of the names of these, if you are truthful. They said, exalted are you. We have no knowledge except what you have taught us. Indeed, it is you who is the knowing, the wise. He said, O Adam, inform them of their names. And when he had informed them of their names, he said, did I not tell you that I know ghayb of the heavens and the earth, and I know what revealed and what you have concealed. Here we can see that Adam, the first man, was equipped with knowledge of certain things which the angels were not. When Adam now informed the angels, the host of the angels, about the knowledge of those things, what did Allah say? Allah said, did I not tell you that I know ghayb of the heavens and the earth? So here we can see that there is a link between al-ghayb and knowledge. Whatever a man does not know is al-ghayb to him. Those who have the knowledge, it is not al-ghayb to them. This verse is also informing us that Allah is the bestower of knowledge to everything. Whatever you have as a knowledge is bestowed upon you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you have a certain knowledge, you have been brought out of al-ghayb. You have been empowered. You have been granted access into the world of al-ghayb. If you don't have a knowledge of certain things, then al-ghayb of that particular things you don't know is applicable to you. So certain things might be unknown to you, and it might be known to me. It might be known to others. It is al-ghayb to those who do not know it, but not al-ghayb to those who know it. So this verse is establishing a relationship between al-ghayb and knowledge. The relationship between al-ghayb and information is also cited in Quran chapter 12 verse 81. Quran chapter 12 verse 81. That is in Surah to Yusuf verse 81.
فقولوا يا أبانا إن ابنك سرق وما شهدنا إلا بما علمنا وما كنا للغيب حافظين.
Return to your father and say, O our father, indeed your son has stolen, and we did not testify except to what we knew, and we were not witnesses of al-ghayb. Here, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was falsely accused of stealing, and the evidence to prove him innocent was referred to here as al-ghayb. Look at that. Someone is being accused of stealing, and then the evidence surrounding the stealing, pilfering, is referred to as al-ghayb. Nowadays, this kind of situation, imagine, this kind of situation here can be solved using a CCTV footage. So, a similar verse is mentioned in Quran, chapter, in that same chapter, verse 52. When Yusuf was being falsely accused of sleeping with the wife of his master. So that means several events that were classified as al-ghayb in the Quran are no longer al-ghayb in our time, the information technology age. Imagine the house where Yusuf was living at that time, where he was being accused of sleeping with the wife of his master. Let's assume a CCTV camera is placed in the rooms of the house, and then they just extract the tape. The evidence will come out whether he actually did it or not. So many matters that the Quran was referring to as al-ghayb were not actually al-ghayb. It would be al-ghayb to those people of that era simply because the devices, the gadgets needed for them to unveil the matter was not available at that time. But now that we have those devices, that we have the technology, those issues would no longer be referred to as al-ghayb. Imagine when Yusuf was being accused of stealing. That, oh, Yusuf, you stole an item of the king or of the kingdom. Now imagine if it were to be nowadays, that particular case will be solved by a CCTV footage. And that means it wouldn't be al-ghayb. So there is power in information. When you don't have the information of certain circumstances, then al-ghayb will apply to you. But if you have the adequate and enough information surrounding or regarding a particular circumstance, then al-ghayb would not be applicable. So, obviously, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is claiming in the Quran that He alone has the knowledge of al-ghayb, then we must begin to ask ourselves, which category of al-ghayb is He referring to? Is it the al-ghayb that we could easily solve nowadays using the CCTV cameras? Is it the al-ghayb that could be solved nowadays using the satellite? Is it the al-ghayb that could be easily solved nowadays using the X-ray, the scan, the MRI, the imaging, the blood test, etc.? So we should begin to ask ourselves, which al-ghayb is Allah referring to, if He is claiming to have the knowledge of all al-ghayb to Himself alone? That is a point we must begin to reason to. Now, one of such verses includes Quran chapter 3, verse 179. That is Surah Al-Imran, 179. Please sit here so that you follow the trend here. Face here, sit here and face.
ما كان الله ليذر المؤمنين على ما أنتم عليه حتى يميز الخبيث من الطيب وما كان الله ليطلعكم على الغيب ولكن الله يجتبي من رسله ما يشاء فآمنوا بالله ورسله وإن تؤمنوا وتتقوا فلكم أجر عظيم.
Allah would not leave the believers in that state you are in presently until He separates the evil from the good. Nor would Allah reveal to you al-ghayb, but instead Allah chooses of His messengers whom He wills. So believe in Allah and His messengers, and if you believe and fear Him, then for you is a great reward. So here Allah is saying that al-ghayb would only be revealed to certain people known as His messengers. So this kind of scenario, we should begin to reason. Is it the kind of al-ghayb that we can easily have access to today? Using technology, using devices, using installations, using satellites? Definitely not. It is not that kind of al-ghayb. So definitely the al-ghayb Allah is referring to here it must be a classified information. It must be some classified pieces of information. Another one is mentioned in Quran chapter 72, verses 26 and 27. Quran chapter 72, verses 26. That is Surah Al-Jinn, verses 26 and 27.
Alimul ghaybi fala yusiru ala ghaybihi hada illa man irtada min rasulin fa innahu yasluku min bayni yadihi wa min khalifihi rasada.
He, Allah, is the knower of al-ghayb, and he does not disclose his al-ghayb to anyone other than to a messenger whom he chooses. Whereafter he appoints guards who go before him and behind him. So this kind of al-ghayb mentioned here, they are the most classical and classified al-ghayb. By and large, all categories of al-ghayb should be considered as knowledge, whereby the all-knower is Allah alone, and he regulates. Don't forget, all-knower in quotes. That is, he knows all. Allah knows all, whether classified or unclassified, and he, Allah, regulates the access to all knowledge. So you cannot have an access to a particular knowledge unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants the access. So that is one of the deductions from these verses. So we are going to read Quran chapter 2 also, verse 200 and 255, where Allah is saying, that is Ayat al-Kursi, He's saying there that وَلَا يُؤِيتُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ وَلَا يُؤِيتُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. Okay, He knows what is presently before them, that is يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ, and what will be after them. And they encompass not a thing, they encompass not an atom, they encompass not an iota of His knowledge, except for what He wills. إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ, except for what He, Allah, wills. So if Allah wills, one would have any knowledge, and if He doesn't will, one would not be able to know, even though you are stressing yourself, even though you are making a huge amount of effort. If Allah doesn't decide that you're going to know something, you would never. So we are going to read Quran chapter 6, verse 59. Quran chapter 6, verse 59. وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُوَ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. And with Him are the keys of the al-ghayb. The key is like code, passwords. So, and with Allah are the passwords of al-ghayb. None knows them except Him. So when Allah is saying here that the password, the keys to having access to all knowledge, which is al-ghayb, is with Him. Nobody is disputing that, because you cannot have access to a knowledge if Allah doesn't will. In the mafatihul ghayb doesn't mean that whatever a man knows is beyond the the destination or predestination of Allah. Allah is saying that indeed, the mafatihul al-ghayb is with him. Well, fine. That doesn't mean if somebody have an access to al-ghayb, we now say, oh, this person is saying nonsense. Nobody can have access to al-ghayb. No, Allah doesn't say that. Al-ghayb is equivalent to an unknown. Something that you don't know is al-ghayb. If you don't know something, others might know it. So what Allah is saying in all these verses is that there is nothing you can know except if Allah wills. Because the key, the access, the passcode of all knowledge lie with Allah alone. So the story of Adam, as stated above, indicates that even though Allah knows all things, He can unveil all things to man at His discretion. And that He can make known to a man things that are unknown, that are al-ghayb, even to the angels. Angels might not know something, and a man would know it if Allah wills. Just as in the case of Adam, the first man. So, history has so far been blessed with a huge number of talented Homo sapiens. Therefore, the knowledge of the unseen could be categorized into three: prophethood, inborn, and acquired. So we are going to discuss al-ghayb under these three categories. But not today.